The elevator doors slid open, and Juliet Davis stepped into the sleek 40th floor conference room with her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat, clutching her portfolio case like it was the only thing keeping her grounded, as she locked eyes with the man who could either make or break everything she had worked toward for the past 3 years. Vincent Ashford sat at the head of the massive glass table, and even from across the room, Juliet could feel the weight of his presence. He was younger than she expected for someone who ran the largest sustainable architecture firm in North America, maybe 35 at most, with dark hair swept back from a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. His gray suit probably cost more than her rent for 6 months. Around him sat 5 other executives, all watching her with the kind of polite skepticism that came from seeing hundreds of pitches and believing in almost none of them. "Miss Davis," Vincent said, his voice deep and measured, "we have 45 minutes. My team tells me your firm is relatively unknown, but your portfolio caught our attention. Show us why we should care." Juliet set down her case and met his gaze without flinching. She had spent 3 years building her environmental consulting firm from nothing, working 18-hour days, maxing out credit cards, and living on instant ramen to prove that sustainable development did not have to sacrifice profitability. She was not about to let some CEO intimidate her now, no matter how intense his stare or how expensive his watch. "Mr. Ashford, with all respect, you should care because every major development project your company has launched in the past 5 years has faced community backlash, permit delays, or environmental lawsuits that have cost you millions in lost time and legal fees," she said, pulling up her first slide. "I am not here to tell you what you are doing wrong. I am here to show you how to do it better, faster, and more profitably." Something flickered in Vincent's eyes. Interest, maybe, or surprise that she had opened with a direct challenge. The executives around him shifted in their seats. For the next 40 minutes, Juliet walked them through case studies, environmental impact assessments, community engagement strategies, and financial projections. She showed them how her approach had helped 3 smaller firms cut their permit approval time in half and eliminate lawsuits entirely. She presented data on cost savings, community support, and long-term sustainability metrics. She anticipated every objection before they could voice it and countered with evidence. Vincent did not interrupt once. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, watching her with an intensity that made her skin prickle with awareness. The other executives asked questions, some skeptical, some genuinely curious, but Vincent just watched. When she finished, the room fell silent. Juliet's heart was racing, her palms damp, but she kept her expression calm and professional. "Thank you for your time," she said. "I will leave you to discuss." "No need," Vincent said, standing abruptly. The other executives looked at him in surprise. He walked around the table, closing the distance between them, and Juliet had to tilt her head back slightly to maintain eye contact. Up close, she could see the faint lines at the corners of his eyes, the sharp intelligence in his gaze, the slight tension in his jaw that suggested he was not as calm as he appeared. "That was the most impressive pitch I have seen in 5 years, he said quietly, then extended his hand. "You win, Miss Davis." Juliet blinked, not quite believing what she was hearing, then reached out and shook his hand. His grip was firm and warm, and the contact sent an unexpected jolt up her arm that had nothing to do with professional victory. "My assistant will book a meeting for next week," Vincent continued, still holding her hand a beat longer than necessary. "We need to discuss partnership terms. I think your firm and mine could accomplish something remarkable together." "Partnership," Juliet repeated, her voice coming out slightly breathless. I thought you were looking for a consultant. I was, Vincent said, finally releasing her hand. But I do not believe in wasting exceptional talent on contract work. If you are interested, we will talk details. Tuesday, 10 a.m. my office. Just you and me. He handed her a business card with his direct number, and Juliet took it with fingers that trembled just slightly. Around them, the executives were murmuring, some looking impressed, others looking annoyed that Vincent had made such a significant decision without consulting them. I will be there, Juliet managed to say. Vincent nodded once, then surprised her with the faintest hint of a smile. Good. I look forward to it. Juliet somehow made it back to the elevator, then out of the building, then 2 blocks down the street before she had to stop and lean against a wall, pressing her hand to her chest. She had done it. She had actually done it. The biggest firm in the industry wanted to partner with her. She pulled out her phone and called her best friend Maya, who answered on the first ring. Well, did they laugh you out of the room or offer you a pity contract? Maya asked. He wants to discuss partnership, Juliet said, still not quite believing it. Vincent Ashford himself. Meeting next Tuesday. Maya screamed so loud that Juliet had to hold the phone away from her ear. Are you serious? Oh my God, Jules, do you know what this means? You are going to be huge. This is everything you have been working for. I know, Juliet said, a grin spreading across her face. I know. But as she walked back to the subway, she could not stop thinking about the way Vincent had looked at her, the intensity in his gray eyes, the way her pulse had jumped when their hands touched. She shook her head, pushing the thoughts away. This was business. The most important business opportunity of her life. She could not afford to complicate it with attraction to a CEO who was probably married anyway, or dating models, or both. When she got home to her tiny studio apartment, she researched everything she could find about Vincent Ashford. 36 years old, MIT graduate, built Ashford Development from a small family business into a billion-dollar empire in 12 years. Known for being brilliant, demanding, and absolutely ruthless in negotiations. Net worth estimated at over $2 billion. Never married. No public relationships. Notoriously private. Juliet stared at his photo on the company website, that same intense gaze staring back at her, and felt her stomach flutter in a way that had nothing to do with business. Get it together, she muttered to herself. This is your career. Focus. She spent the weekend preparing for the Tuesday meeting, researching partnership structures, consulting with her lawyer, and putting together projections for what a collaboration might look like. By Monday night, she felt ready for anything. Tuesday morning, she dressed in her best navy suit, pulled her dark hair back into a professional bun, and took the subway to Ashford Development's headquarters. This time, when she stepped off the elevator, Vincent's assistant was waiting for her. Miss Davis, Mr. Ashford is expecting you, the woman said with a professional smile. Right this way. Vincent's office was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, sleek modern furniture, and walls lined with architectural models and awards. Vincent stood by the windows, hands in his pockets, staring out at the skyline. He turned when she entered, and Juliet felt that same jolt of awareness she had experienced when they shook hands. Miss Davis, he said, gesturing to a seating area with 2 leather chairs and a low table. Please sit. Coffee, please, Juliet said, settling into one of the chairs. Black. Vincent poured 2 cups from a carafe on a sideboard, then sat across from her. Without the conference table and executives between them, the space felt oddly intimate. I will be direct, Vincent said, handing her a coffee cup. I have been looking for someone like you for 2 years. Someone who understands that sustainable development is not just good ethics, it is good business. Someone who can navigate environmental regulations, community relations, and financial realities simultaneously. Your pitch last week demonstrated all of that and more. Thank you, Juliet said carefully. But why partnership instead of hiring me as a consultant or bringing me on as an employee? Because you built your own firm, Vincent said, leaning forward slightly. That takes vision, courage, and determination. I do not want to absorb your company. I want to work alongside it. Your firm remains independent, but we collaborate exclusively on all my major projects. You get access to my resources, my reputation, and my client base. I get your expertise and your approach. And in return, Juliet asked, profit sharing on joint projects. 70-30 split your favor for the first 2 years. After that, we renegotiate based on performance. Juliet's eyes widened. That is incredibly generous. It is fair, Vincent corrected. Your work will save me far more than 30% in delays and legal fees. I believe in compensating people properly for their value. He paused, studying her face. But I need to know you are all in. This kind of partnership requires complete trust and commitment. I do not work well with people who are halfway in. Neither do I, Juliet said, meeting his gaze. And I do not say yes to anything without understanding exactly what I am agreeing to. I will need to review contracts, talk to my lawyer, and understand the full scope of what you are proposing. Vincent's mouth quirked in what might have been approval. I would expect nothing less. My legal team has drawn up preliminary terms. Take them, review them, negotiate whatever you need to negotiate, but I want an answer by the end of the week. He slid a thick folder across the table. Juliet picked it up, feeling the weight of it, the weight of the decision it represented. One question, she said. Why me specifically? There are bigger firms with more resources. Vincent was quiet for a moment, and something in his expression shifted, became more guarded. Because when I saw your portfolio, I saw someone who cares about the work, not just the profit. Because your approach to the Riverside project showed genuine innovation. And because when you walked into that conference room last week, you looked me in the eye and told me I was losing millions and you were right. He paused. I respect that. I need people around me who will tell me the truth, not what they think I want to hear. Juliet felt her cheeks warm slightly under his gaze. I will have an answer by Friday, she said. Good. Vincent stood, and Juliet followed suit. He extended his hand again, and when she took it, that same electric awareness shot through her. This time, she saw his eyes flicker with something that might have been recognition of it too, but it was gone so quickly she might have imagined it. I look forward to working with you, Miss Davis, he said. Juliet, she said. If we are going to be partners, you can call me Juliet. Juliet, he repeated, and the way he said her name, slow and deliberate, made her stomach flip. Vincent. She left his office feeling like her entire world had shifted on its axis. In the elevator, she pulled out her phone and texted Maya. I think I am in trouble. Maya's response came immediately. Good trouble or bad trouble? Juliet stared at the folder in her hands, then typed back. I do not know yet. She spent the next 3 days reviewing the contracts with her lawyer, who kept shaking his head in disbelief at how favorable the terms were. By Thursday evening, Juliet knew she would be a fool to turn this down. It was everything she had dreamed of and more, but something kept nagging at her. The way Vincent had looked at her, the way her body had responded, the feeling that accepting this partnership might be opening a door to something she was not prepared for. Friday morning, she called the number on Vincent's business card. He answered on the second ring. Juliet, he said, and she could hear the anticipation in his voice. Do you have an answer? Yes to the partnership, she said, but I need to establish some ground rules first. Can we meet? My office, 1 hour, actually, somewhere neutral, Juliet said. Coffee shop, your choice. There was a pause, then Vincent said, "There is a place called Brews and Views on 5th Street. I will be there in an hour." Juliet arrived at the coffee shop to find it was a small, cozy place with brick walls and mismatched furniture, nothing like she would have expected a billionaire CEO to frequent. Vincent was already there, sitting at a corner table, wearing jeans and a black sweater instead of a suit. He looked younger, more approachable, and somehow that made Juliet's heart race even faster. She ordered a coffee and sat across from him. "Thank you for meeting me here. I come here sometimes when I need to think," Vincent said. "No one recognizes me, and the coffee is better than anything in my office." He leaned back, studying her. "What ground rules did you want to establish?" Juliet took a breath. "I am saying yes to this partnership because it is brilliant business and everything I have worked toward. But I need to know that it is going to stay professional. No complications, no blurred lines, no mixing business with anything else." Vincent's expression did not change, but something in his eyes sharpened. "Are you worried I am going to make this complicated, Juliet?" "I am worried that we might," she said honestly. "And I cannot afford to mess this up. This partnership is too important." Vincent was silent for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You are right. This partnership is too important to complicate. Professional boundaries, clear communication, complete focus on the work." "Agreed." "Agreed," Juliet said, feeling both relieved and strangely disappointed. "So we have a deal." Vincent extended his hand across the table. Juliet shook it firmly. "We have a deal." "Good," Vincent said. "Then let us celebrate. Dinner tonight to mark the beginning of our partnership, somewhere nice." "My treat." Juliet hesitated. "Vincent, I just said a professional dinner between business partners," he interrupted smoothly. "Nothing more. We should discuss project timelines and priorities anyway." Put that way, Juliet could not really refuse. "All right, but somewhere we can actually talk, not some loud restaurant." "I know a place," Vincent said, and something about the way he said it made Juliet wonder if she was making a mistake. That evening, a car picked Juliet up and drove her to a restaurant she had only read about in magazines, the kind of place where reservations were booked months in advance, and entrees cost more than her weekly grocery budget. Vincent was waiting at a private table by the window, and when he stood to greet her, she realized he was wearing a dark suit again and looked every inch the powerful CEO. "This is not exactly low-key," Juliet said as she sat down. "I do not do anything low-key," Vincent said with a slight smile. "But I reserved the table by the window so we would have privacy to talk business." And they did talk business extensively, over multiple courses of incredible food. They discussed project timelines, resource allocation, and collaboration protocols. But somewhere between the appetizers and the main course, the conversation shifted into something more personal. "Why environmental consulting?" Vincent asked. "What made you choose this field?" Juliet traced the rim of her wine glass. "I grew up in a small town that was destroyed by a chemical plant. The company came in, promised jobs and prosperity, got all their permits approved, and then proceeded to pollute everything. The water, the air, the soil. People got sick, kids got sick. My little brother got sick." She looked up, meeting his eyes. "He died when he was 7, leukemia, probably from the contaminated water." Vincent's expression softened, genuine sympathy crossing his features. "I am sorry." "It was a long time ago," Juliet said. "But it taught me that development does not have to be destructive. It should not be. Companies should be able to grow and profit without poisoning communities. That is what I want to prove." "And you are proving it," Vincent said quietly. "Your work is remarkable, Juliet." The way he said her name again, with that same careful deliberation, made her pulse quicken. She took a sip of wine to cover her reaction. "What about you?" she asked. Why architecture and development? Vincent was quiet for a moment, looking out the window at the city lights. My father started Ashford Development as a small construction company. He built houses, office buildings, practical things. But he always wanted to build something that mattered, something that would last and make a difference. He died before he could see the company grow into what it is now. He turned back to her. I built this empire for him to finish what he started, but lately I have been wondering if I have lost sight of what he actually cared about. Profit and growth are not enough. The work has to mean something. Is that why you were interested in my pitch? Juliet asked. Partly, Vincent admitted, but also because you reminded me that there is another way to do this, a better way, and I am tired of doing things the same way everyone else does. They talked for hours, long after the plates were cleared and the restaurant began to empty. Juliet found herself laughing at Vincent's dry humor, surprised by how easy he was to talk to once the boardroom walls came down. He asked about her life, her interests, her dreams beyond work. She asked about his. He told her about his love of sailing, about a house he had bought on the coast where he escaped when the city got too overwhelming. She told him about her hiking trips, her small garden on her apartment's fire escape, her secret love of old movies. When Vincent's driver finally dropped her off at her apartment building, Juliet realized it was past midnight. She also realized that this had felt nothing like a business dinner and everything like a date. "Thank you for tonight," she said, turning to Vincent in the back seat. "And for the partnership, I promise I will not let you down." "I know you will not," Vincent said. His eyes held hers in the dim light. "Juliet, I want you to know that I meant what I said earlier. Professional boundaries. This partnership is too important to risk. But I also want you to know that tonight was one of the best evenings I have had in years. Just as a friend, as a partner, I value that." "Me too," Juliet admitted softly. Vincent nodded, then leaned forward and opened her door. "I will see you Monday. We have a project kickoff meeting at 9. Juliet climbed out, gave him a small wave, and watched the car drive away. Then she went upstairs, collapsed on her couch, and called Maya. "I am in so much trouble," she said when Maya answered. "Still good trouble?" "I do not know," Juliet said honestly. "I just had the most amazing evening with the most fascinating man I have ever met, and I have agreed to work closely with him while pretending I am not attracted to him at all." "Oh, honey," Maya said sympathetically. "Yeah, you are definitely in trouble." The next 3 months were the most intense, exhilarating, and frustrating of Juliet's life. She and Vincent worked together constantly, meeting 2 or 3 times a week to collaborate on projects. Her firm provided environmental assessments and community engagement strategies for 3 major developments. Vincent's team provided resources, contacts, and implementation support. The collaboration was seamless, productive, and wildly successful. The first project received unanimous permit approval in record time, with community groups actually praising the development plans. But working so closely with Vincent was torture in the most delicious way. Every meeting, Juliet became more aware of him. The way he listened when she talked, really listened, with his complete attention. The way he defended her ideas to skeptical executives. The way he remembered small details she mentioned in passing. The way he looked at her sometimes, with an intensity that made her forget what she was saying. And she was not the only one affected. She caught Vincent watching her sometimes when he thought she was not looking, saw the way his jaw tightened when one of his executives flirted with her, noticed how he found excuses to extend their meetings or grab lunch together to discuss projects. They maintained their professional boundaries scrupulously. No touching beyond handshakes. No dinners alone that were not explicitly business-related. No personal conversations that strayed too far into intimate territory. But the tension between them grew with every interaction, an electric current that hummed beneath every word. "This is ridiculous," Maya said one evening when Juliet was over for dinner, complaining about her situation for the 100th time. "You are both adults. You are clearly into each other. Just ask him out or tell him how you feel." "I cannot," Juliet said, pushing food around her plate. "The partnership is too important. If I make a move and he is not interested, or worse, if we date and it goes badly, everything I have worked for could fall apart." "And if you do not make a move, you are going to spend the rest of your life wondering what if," Maya countered. "Jules, I have never seen you this hung up on anyone. This is different." "I know," Juliet admitted quietly. "That is what scares me." The situation came to a head during a site visit to one of their joint projects. Juliet and Vincent drove out together to tour a development site and meet with the construction team. The meeting went well, and afterward, they walked the property together, discussing plans and possibilities. It was a beautiful fall day, the trees blazing with color, the air crisp and clean. Juliet felt herself relax in a way she rarely did in the city, and Vincent seemed different too, less guarded, more open. "I love this part," Vincent said, looking out over the land. "Before anything is built, when it is all just potential and possibility, you can see what it could become." "What do you see?" Juliet asked. Vincent turned to her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. "I see a community. Homes where families will grow and thrive. Parks where kids will play. Spaces that enhance lives instead of disrupting them. Thanks to you, I see a better version of what I have been building." "We are building it together," Juliet said softly. "Yes," Vincent agreed. "We are." They stood there, just looking at each other, and Juliet felt the moment stretching, becoming something more. Vincent took a step closer, and she did not step back. His hand came up, almost touching her cheek, then he seemed to catch himself and dropped it. "Juliet," he said, his voice rougher than usual, "I need to tell you something." "What?" she whispered. "These past 3 months working with you, getting to know you, have been extraordinary. You are brilliant and passionate, and you challenge me in ways no one else does. I look forward to our meetings more than anything else in my week. And I know we agreed to keep this professional, but he stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. "Vincent," Juliet said, her heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. "I feel the same way." His eyes widened slightly. "You do?" "Yes," she admitted. "I have been trying so hard not to, because I do not want to mess up the partnership, but I cannot stop thinking about you. I cannot stop wanting more than just business meetings and professional boundaries." Vincent's hand came up again, and this time it did not stop. He cupped her cheek gently, his thumb brushing across her skin, and Juliet's eyes fluttered closed at the contact. "We should not do this," Vincent said, but he was leaning closer even as he said it. "I know," Juliet breathed. "The partnership, I know. It could complicate everything. I do not care," Juliet said, opening her eyes to meet his. "I do not care anymore. I want this. I want you." Vincent made a low sound in his throat, and then he was kissing her, pulling her close, and Juliet melted into him. His lips were firm and warm, and the kiss was everything she had been imagining for 3 months and more. Her hands fisted in his jacket and his arms wrapped around her waist, holding her tight against him. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vincent pressed his forehead to hers. "This changes everything," he said. "I know," Juliet whispered. "Are you scared?" "Terrified," Vincent admitted. "I have never felt this way about anyone. What if we mess this up?" "What if we do not?" Juliet countered. Vincent pulled back just enough to look at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes made her chest ache. "I do not want to lose you, Juliet, not as a partner and not as whatever this is becoming." "You will not," Juliet said firmly. We are both smart, professional people. We can handle this. We will just have to be honest with each other, communicate constantly, and not let work issues bleed into personal ones or vice versa. And if that does not work, then we will figure it out, Juliet said. Together. Vincent studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Together. He kissed her again, softer this time, sweeter. Will you have dinner with me tomorrow? An actual date, not a business meeting? Yes, Juliet said, unable to stop smiling. I would love that. They held hands on the drive back to the city, and when Vincent dropped her off at her apartment, he kissed her goodnight like a teenager, sweet and gentle and full of promise. Juliet floated up to her apartment and immediately called Maya, who screamed with delight at the news. Finally. Oh my God, finally. Tell me everything. What was the kiss like? What did he say? When are you seeing him again? Juliet laughed, feeling lighter and happier than she had in months. Tomorrow night, an actual date. This is going to be amazing, Maya said confidently. I can feel it. You two are perfect for each other. Juliet hoped she was right. Their first official date was at a small Italian restaurant Vincent knew, tucked away in a neighborhood Juliet had never explored. It was cozy and intimate, with checkered tablecloths and candles on every table. They talked for hours again, but this time without the guard of professional distance. Vincent told her about his childhood, about the pressure he had felt to succeed, about his fears and insecurities beneath the confident CEO exterior. Juliet shared her struggles building her business, her doubts, her dreams for the future. I want to make a real difference, she said. Not just consult on projects, but actually change how development happens industry-wide. You will, Vincent said with absolute certainty. You already are. And I want to help you do it. At the end of the night, Vincent walked her to her door, and when he kissed her goodnight, it was with a passion that left them both shaking. I should go, he murmured against her lips. You should, Juliet agreed, but neither of them moved. Vincent laughed softly. This is going to be difficult, is it not? Probably, Juliet said, but worth it. Definitely worth it, Vincent agreed, stealing one more kiss before finally forcing himself to step back. I will see you Monday. Monday, Juliet confirmed, though it felt impossibly far away. They fell into a pattern over the next few months, balancing their professional partnership with their growing personal relationship. At work, they maintained appropriate boundaries, keeping displays of affection minimal and focusing on the projects. But outside of work, they spent almost every free moment together. Vincent took her sailing on his boat, and Juliet discovered she loved being out on the water with him, the wind in her hair and his arm around her waist. She took him hiking in the mountains, and he surprised her with his enthusiasm for the outdoors. They cooked dinner together in his sleek downtown apartment, watched her favorite old movies on his couch, talked until dawn about everything and nothing. Juliet met Vincent's mother, a sharp, elegant woman who ran a charity foundation, and made her approval known by inviting Juliet to lunch alone to discuss environmental initiatives. Vincent met Juliet's family, including her parents, who were cautiously impressed by the billionaire dating their daughter. He treats you well, her father asked quietly when they had a moment alone. Very well, Juliet said honestly. He respects me, supports my work, and makes me happier than I have ever been. Her father nodded. That is all I needed to know. 6 months into their relationship, Vincent invited Juliet to spend the weekend at his coastal house. She packed a bag with excitement and nerves, knowing that this weekend would be significant, a next step in their relationship. The house was stunning, a modern glass structure perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Vincent showed her around, then took her out onto the deck where the sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. I have been thinking, Vincent said, wrapping his arms around her from behind as they watched the waves crash against the rocks below. "About us, about our future." "And?" Juliet asked, leaning back against his chest. "I love you," Vincent said simply. "I should have told you sooner, but I wanted to be absolutely certain, and now I am. I love you, Juliet. I love your passion and your intelligence and your terrible taste in movies. I love how you challenge me and support me and make me want to be better. I love coming home to you and waking up next to you and building this life with you." Juliet turned in his arms, tears streaming down her face. "I love you too," she said. "So much. I think I have loved you since that first pitch, when you looked at me like I was the most interesting person in the room." Vincent kissed her deeply, thoroughly, and then he surprised her by dropping to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Juliet Davis," he said, opening the box to reveal a stunning ring, a simple platinum band with a single perfect diamond. "I know this is fast, and I know we agreed to take things slow, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life. You are my partner in every way that matters. Will you marry me?" Juliet could barely see through her tears. "Yes," she said, pulling him to his feet and kissing him. "Yes, absolutely yes." Vincent slipped the ring on her finger, and they stood there on the deck, holding each other as the sun set over the ocean, both of them laughing and crying at once. They were married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the coastal house, with just close friends and family present. Maya was Juliet's maid of honor, and Vincent's best friend from college stood up as his best man. It was intimate and perfect, exactly what they both wanted. The partnership between their companies continued to thrive and expand. Within 2 years, they had collaborated on 15 major projects, all of which succeeded beyond expectations. Juliet's firm grew from a one-woman operation to a staff of 12, and she became a sought-after speaker on sustainable development. Vincent restructured his company to prioritize environmental responsibility, and industry publications started calling him a pioneer in ethical development. But more than the professional success, Juliet cherished the life they built together. They bought a house halfway between the city and the coast, with a big garden where Juliet could grow her plants and enough space for Vincent's growing collection of architectural models. They traveled together, exploring cities and wilderness alike. They hosted dinner parties for friends, spent quiet evenings reading on the couch, argued passionately about project decisions, and made up even more passionately afterward. 2 years after their wedding, Juliet found out she was pregnant. Vincent cried when she told him, then immediately started planning renovations to turn one of the spare bedrooms into a nursery. "We need to make it sustainable," he said seriously, sketching ideas on a notepad. "Non-toxic paint, reclaimed wood, energy-efficient everything." "Of course we do," Juliet said with amusement, running her hand over her still flat stomach. "I would expect nothing less." Their daughter, Emma, was born on a rainy spring morning, tiny and perfect with Vincent's dark hair and Juliet's green eyes. Vincent held her for the first time with such tenderness that Juliet fell in love with him all over again. "Hello, Emma," he whispered to the baby. "I am your dad. I am going to do everything I can to make the world better for you. Your mom and I both will." Juliet reached out and took his hand, squeezing tight. "Together," she said. "Always together," Vincent agreed. Motherhood and running a business proved challenging to balance, but Vincent was a true partner in every sense, taking paternity leave to stay home with Emma, hiring the best childcare, and restructuring both their schedules to ensure they could both be present for their daughter. They brought Emma into the office sometimes, and she became something of a mascot for both companies, reminding everyone why they were doing this work in the first place. On Emma's first birthday, As they celebrated in the garden with friends and family, Juliet looked around at the life they had built and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. She caught Vincent's eye across the yard, and he came over immediately, wrapping his arm around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Just how lucky I am," Juliet said, watching Emma toddle around the grass, chasing bubbles. "3 years ago, I was terrified and barely making rent, and now I have you and Emma and a career I love and more happiness than I ever imagined possible." "I am the lucky one," Vincent said, kissing her temple. "You walked into that conference room and changed my entire life. You made me better, Juliet. You showed me what really matters." "We made each other better," Juliet corrected. "That is what real partnership is about." Vincent smiled, that same slight curve of his mouth that had fascinated her from the beginning. "Do you remember what you said when we first met? That I was losing millions?" "I do," Juliet said. "You looked like you wanted to either throw me out or hire me on the spot." "I wanted to do both," Vincent admitted. "But mostly, I wanted to know everything about the woman brave enough to challenge me. I wanted to understand how your mind worked. I wanted to know what made you smile. I did not realize yet that what I really wanted was to spend the rest of my life with you." "Good thing I won the pitch then," Juliet said with a grin. "Best business decision I ever made," Vincent said, "offering you that partnership." "Best decision I ever made was saying yes," Juliet replied. They kissed, there in the garden with their daughter playing nearby and their friends celebrating around them, and Juliet thought about how one pitch, one handshake, one meeting had led to all of this. She thought about the scared young woman who had walked into that conference room with everything riding on 45 minutes, and she wanted to tell that woman that it was going to be okay. Better than okay. That she would win the pitch and shake the CEO's hand, and he would book a meeting that would change everything. That 3 years later, she would be standing in a garden she owned, married to that CEO, with a beautiful daughter and a thriving career and more love than she had ever dreamed possible. "What are you smiling about?" Vincent asked, pulling back to look at her. "Everything," Juliet said honestly. "Absolutely everything." Emma toddled over then, holding out her arms, and Vincent scooped her up, settling her on his hip. She grabbed at both their faces with her chubby hands, giggling, and they both laughed. "Family photo," Maya called, brandishing her camera, and Vincent pulled Juliet close as their friends gathered around to capture the moment. Years passed in a blur of joy and challenges and growth. Emma was joined by a son, James, 2 years later, and the house filled with the chaos and love of a growing family. Juliet's firm expanded internationally, opening offices in 3 countries and becoming a leading voice in sustainable development. Vincent's company continued to innovate, winning awards for projects that balanced profitability with environmental responsibility. Together, they established a foundation to provide grants to young entrepreneurs in green industries, helping others achieve the kind of breakthrough success that Juliet had found. But the best moments were still the quiet ones. Sunday mornings in bed with the kids piled between them. Date nights where they still talked for hours about work and dreams and silly things that made them laugh. Sailing trips where Vincent taught the children to navigate while Juliet read on the deck. Family dinners in the garden they had cultivated together. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Vincent surprised Juliet by taking her back to the coastal house where he had proposed, arranging for the kids to stay with his mother for the weekend. "You remember the first time I brought you here?" he asked as they stood on the same deck where he had proposed. "Of course," Juliet said, leaning against the railing. "I was so nervous. I knew that weekend was going to be important." "I had the ring in my pocket for 2 weeks before that," Vincent admitted. "I kept trying to find the perfect moment, and then I realized that any moment with you was perfect." Still as romantic as the day I met you, Juliet teased, and Vincent pulled her close, kissing her with the same passion he had shown all those years ago. I love you more now than I did then, he said seriously. Every day with you, every challenge we face together, every success we celebrate, every moment with our children, I fall more in love with you. Right back at you, Juliet said, her heart full. You are still the most fascinating man I have ever met, the best partner I could ask for in business and in life. To another 10 years, Vincent asked, raising the glass of wine he had brought out. To forever, Juliet corrected, clinking her glass against his. They stood there as the sun set, the same view they had watched the night he proposed, and Juliet reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From that first pitch to this moment, it had been a wild, wonderful ride. There had been challenges, of course. Times when balancing business and family felt impossible. Times when they disagreed on projects or parenting or priorities. But they had navigated it all together, with honesty and communication and unwavering commitment to each other. You know what I realized recently? Juliet said, setting down her wine glass and turning to face Vincent fully. That day I pitched to you was not just about winning a contract or building my business. It was about finding my equal, someone who could match me, challenge me, support me. I did not know I was looking for that, but I found it anyway. Vincent's expression softened, and he cupped her face in his hands. I spent years building an empire, thinking that success would be enough. That professional achievement would fill whatever was missing. But it never did, not until you. You showed me what real success looks like. It looks like a partner who makes you better, a family you build together, work that matters, and a life that has meaning. We did pretty well for two people who met in a boardroom, Juliet said with a smile. We did, Vincent agreed. Though I think we should probably stop telling people we met when you want to pitch against me. Makes me sound like a bad CEO. You are a brilliant CEO, Juliet said firmly. You just recognized good work when you saw it and were smart enough to shake my hand and book that meeting. Best meeting of my life, Vincent said. Mine too, Juliet replied. They made love that night in the beach house, slow and tender and full of the depth that came from years of knowing each other completely. Afterward, lying in Vincent's arms listening to the waves crash outside, Juliet felt perfectly content. What are you thinking about? Vincent asked, running his fingers through her hair. Just that I would not change a single thing, Juliet said. Not one moment, not one decision, not one challenge. It all led to this to us, and it is perfect. It really is, Vincent agreed, pulling her closer. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and Juliet dreamed of the future still ahead of them. Of Emma and James growing up with parents who loved each other and their work. Of projects they would build together, communities they would improve, changes they would make. Of growing old with Vincent, their partnership deepening with every passing year. She woke to find Vincent already awake, watching her with that same intensity he had shown in their first meeting. What? She asked, smiling sleepily. Just memorizing this moment, Vincent said. You here happy, I never want to forget it. You are such a romantic, Juliet said, stretching up to kiss him. Only with you, Vincent said. You bring it out of me. They spent the weekend walking the beach, cooking together, making love, and talking about everything and nothing. It was exactly what they both needed, a chance to reconnect away from the demands of work and parenting. On Sunday evening, as they drove back to the city to pick up the kids, Vincent reached over and took Juliet's hand. Thank you, he said. For what? For taking a chance on me, Vincent said. For walking into that conference room and being brave enough to tell me the truth. For saying yes to the partnership, and to dinner, and to marriage, and to building this whole beautiful life with me. Juliet squeezed his hand. Thank you for seeing me. For recognizing my value when I was just a nobody with a good idea. For offering me partnership instead of employment. For loving me the way you do. Always, Vincent said simply. When they got home and Emma and James came running to greet them, both kids talking over each other about their weekend with Grandma, Juliet caught Vincent's eye over their heads. He smiled at her, that private smile that was just for her, and she smiled back, her heart full to bursting. This was her life now. A life she had built pitch by pitch, meeting by meeting, choice by choice. A life with a man who was her true partner in every sense, who challenged her and supported her and loved her fiercely. A life with children they were raising to care about the world and make it better. A life doing work that mattered, making real change, proving that success and ethics were not mutually exclusive. It had started with 45 minutes in a conference room with a pitch that won, with a handshake that sealed a professional partnership. But it had become so much more than that. It had become everything. That night, after the kids were in bed, Juliet and Vincent sat on their back porch, watching fireflies dance in the garden. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I had not gotten that pitch meeting?" Juliet asked. "No," Vincent said immediately. "Because you would have found another way. You are too talented and too determined to have stayed unknown. Maybe it would have taken longer, maybe we would have met differently, but I believe we would have found each other somehow." "You think we were meant to be?" Juliet asked, amused. "I think we were meant to be partners," Vincent said. "Whether that is fate or luck or just good timing, I do not really care. I am just grateful it happened." "Me too," Juliet said, resting her head on his shoulder. They sat there in comfortable silence, and Juliet thought about all the pitches she had given over the years, all the meetings and negotiations and collaborations. But none of them would ever compare to that first one, when she had walked into Vincent Ashford's conference room with everything to prove and nothing to lose, when she had looked a billionaire CEO in the eye and told him he was losing millions, when she had won not just a contract but a partnership that would change her entire life. She had won the pitch against the CEO. He had shaken her hand and booked a meeting to offer partnership. And somehow, miraculously, that professional partnership had become a love story. The kind of love story Juliet had never believed in. The kind where two people truly brought out the best in each other, supported each other's dreams, and built something extraordinary together. As the years continued to unfold, Juliet and Vincent remained each other's greatest advocates and truest partners. They weathered business downturns and family challenges, celebrated successes, and comforted each other through losses. They watched Emma and James grow into thoughtful, passionate young people who cared about making the world better, just like their parents. They continued to innovate in their respective fields, pushing boundaries and changing industries, always together. And every year on the anniversary of that first pitch, Vincent would take Juliet to dinner at that same cozy Italian restaurant, and they would toast to the day that started it all. The day she won the pitch. The day he shook her hand. The day he booked the meeting that changed everything. The day their partnership began, in business and in love, setting them on a path toward a future neither of them could have imagined but both of them had built together. One choice, one moment, one pitch at a time.